It's really fucking weird, especially with a lot of parents out there. Like whenever like a kid is hanging out with another kid, the parents like, ooh, is that your boyfriend? Is that your girlfriend? It's fucking weird, man. Like, these are kids. I understand that it's like a playful little thing, but it's kind of suggested or forced onto a person when they're very young. And an extension of that is when kids do become a little bit older, they go through puberty, then you get a lot of the, oh, like, is that your girlfriend? Is that your boyfriend? Like, what's up here? And then past that, once you get to a certain age where the normal expectation is for you to have kids, it's like, oh, when am I gonna get grandkids? When am I gonna get grandkids? All this kind of shit. Like, when are you going to engage in a heterosexual engagement where you produce offspring for the benefit of I want to see it as a parent, which is kind of fucking weird too. That kind of pressure from a parent, I don't like it. It's unfair to especially everyone, but also especially queer people who may not have a desire for that. It's weird, man. I don't know. The straights, they're a bit odd, is what I'm gonna say. They're kind of forcing their degeneracy onto everybody else, and I don't like it. So I literally don't know anything about Jaiden Animations. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not ashamed to say it. I do not know who this person is. I didn't know who they were until this video, apparently. As far as I'm aware, this person is named Jaiden and they make animations. As far as I could tell, they kind of just have a story to tell and they animate it, which is kind of cool in my opinion. I have a lot of respect for animation, even if it is more low key, which it has to be for YouTube because animating takes too much labor and time and you don't get rewarded for it on YouTube, unfortunately, because watch time is preferred by YouTube's algorithm as far as I'm aware. Anyway, Jaiden put out a video about being not straight, whatever that means. We've got Jaiden, I assume, this is her depiction of herself, and then the pride flag behind it. So we assume we're not straight. Let's find out. The only thing I know is that people got really mad about it. And by people, I mean a small fraction of people engaging with this got mad about it. And I'm gonna look at those later too. But let's watch the video.
Okay, before I even say anything, let's lay out some ground rules. This is probably gonna be the most open I'll ever get about my personal life. I know I've shared tidbits of myself and life through little stories, but when it comes to personal stuff, I'm very private. Basically, this is something I want to talk about, share, and bring a spotlight to. So no trying to assume or guess anything beyond what I'm sharing within this video.
Is it untoward of me to suggest that she gives me the vibes of that one girl from Gravity Falls? I forget her name. Mabel? Mabel. I feel like you probably get this a lot, though.
Let's get into it. I've come to realize that I'm aroace, which stands for aromantic asexual.
Paul.
And I know what you're thinking. That's not gay. What the hell is that? And you know what? That is completely fair because I didn't know what that was either. Aromantic and asexual are two different things, and I'm gonna break them down to you separately, starting with aromantic because no one really knows what that one is. And also, it's my personal favorite. Someone who's aromantic is defined as a person who feels very little to no romantic attraction to anyone at all. So like, they might not develop crushes on people or feel the need to be in a romantic relationship with anyone. Very general terms, but hopefully you kind of get the gist.
And also, as far as I'm aware, that could be like an intrinsic thing to a person, like you are literally aromantic. Try as you might, you just cannot feel the desire, want, or anything like that to try to form a romantic relationship with anybody. However, it's also kind of potentially a lifestyle choice to live like an aromantic person. I don't know if they use the same terms, but that's essentially what I've been doing for the last 5 or more years of my life. I haven't been in a romantic relationship nor a sexual relationship for 5 years. I voluntarily do not seek out romantic or sexual engagements. My reasoning for this is not because I'm aromantic or asexual. It's just that I do not give a shit. I don't care enough to put in the effort to make it happen. I don't care enough. And I'm totally fine living without having sex and without having a romantic engagement. I'm completely okay with that. I'm vibing. It's also not to say that I don't feel any kind of sexual desire or desire for a romantic relationship. I certainly do. I am a very sexual person. I just handle my business by myself. The romantic element of it is kind of different because I've had difficulty maintaining romantic relationships before. I've been in them, but romance to me feels a bit odd. So I say this all to say that I've got some kind of background radiation idea about certain things related to aromantic and asexual people, but I'm not aromantic or asexual.
I remember when I was in 5th grade, kids were talking about their crushes left and right, and it was starting to feel like something I had to experience too, just because I thought that's just what happens. Don't make fun of 9-year-old me. I was a sheep. Anyway, I decided.
Well, that's kind of the thing, though, right? The reason why a lot of people bristle at the idea of like, oh, aromantic, asexual, that can't be true. That's not normal or whatever. I feel like a lot of people's immediate negative feeling to seeing somebody make a coming out post about the fact that they're aromantic or asexual is like, well, no, I feel that way. I have a desire for romantic and sexual relationships. And some people might even feel bad about that. Like, oh, I desire these relationships, but I can't get them. How dare you just not even feel these things that are plaguing me? It's kind of odd. And I experience it too. Often when I bring up the idea that I don't feel the want or care enough to try to form romantic or sexual relationships, a lot of people will be like, oh my God, but you get it so easily. Like, I have so much trouble getting them. Like, well, how did... It's like, fuck you, first of all. Second of all, I'm not you. Third of all, I don't want to be you. So mind your business. It's a little odd. I don't know. It's weird. But I guess it's just because it's not something people are used to. You're not educated on the shit. And the other side of the coin is that for somebody that is aromantic or asexual but doesn't understand those words or what that means or how to interpret it or how to deal with it, you're going to deal with a lot of problems in regards to feeling like an outcast, feeling like there's something wrong with you when there isn't. So that kind of education not only helps people that aren't aromantic and asexual, but also helps people that are and just don't know it. It's an all-around net benefit, and not teaching it to people is ludicrous. You're pro people getting hurt if you don't want these things taught. But most conservatives want people to suffer, so.
I needed to have a crush because that's just what happens to people. And I very robotically chose this random kid in the class who we can call Pikachu. That's not his name. He didn't mean anything to me, and I didn't do anything about this crush. Like, I didn't tell anyone or anything. It was just a headcanon thing for me to feel up to speed and like I was hitting my normal human emotions quota.
That's a coping mechanism. Not all coping is a bad thing, by the way. In fact, coping by itself is a very neutral thing. It's just bad or good or whatever. But that's, I think, what's being described here. It is a way to cope with a thing that you can't completely understand about yourself.
But it's funny because on Valentine's Day, you know how in elementary school everyone would bring cheesy Walmart Valentine's cards for everyone in the class, and then you'd have a box full of candy and hollow emotions from everyone? Well, my school did that. When I went through my box, I pulled out Pikachu's Valentine and thought to myself, someone who has a crush on someone would keep this. I think. So I put Pikachu's copy-paste Batman Valentine in my drawer and promptly forgot about it because it meant nothing to me, but hey, that's just what I thought I was supposed to do.
That stuff is interesting. I don't know how to feel about it. On the one hand, I can understand why schools would do it, because it's just like a part of socialization when you're young. If you want to do it, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think you should be forced to do it. That's my take. I think. If like a kid doesn't want to do it, there's going to be an implicit like weirdness about it. Because if everybody's doing it and there's one kid that just doesn't want to, that doesn't, then that kid's going to be singled out by the rest of the kids. Inevitably so, because kids are shitty and assholes a lot of the time. I don't know how to feel about it.
Years passed, I entered junior high and thought to myself, all right, this is the time where people start developing crushes and then do something about it. Like get into relationships or something. So I was like preparing to be interested in people. On the first day of school, I scoped out the room to see if there was anyone that I thought looked like someone I could develop a crush on. And this was when classes started being divided up into periods, so there were like 6 batches of people I sifted through. But no one caught my eye, and I thought, man, unlucky.
Man, it's not Jaiden's fault that everybody in her school are just completely undateable losers. There's not much you could do about that, really.
Year, I thought something would change, especially going into high school when people started actually hitting puberty and were getting conventionally attractive. But my entire school life, grades kindergarten to senior year, which I'm pretty sure is like 13 years, I wasn't interested in a single person throughout any of it. And I went to a big high school. There were like 3,500 students there. Surely...
What would also be interesting to see, and I don't know if it comes up, I haven't seen the video yet, perhaps like crushes on characters in media, because that's usually a thing that people will go through as well. Maybe you're watching The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody as a kid, and you're like, wow, the one girl is very pretty, and you have a crush on that character in media as a kid. I feel like that's a fairly standard thing to have, even like cartoons. I would be curious to see if Jaiden is going to talk about any experience related to that, especially considering that, she's an animator.
By the time I was going to college, I really felt like I had to find someone. It felt like I was falling behind the curve. I made a lot of new friends, and that's when I thought I developed my first genuine crush. Long story short, in hindsight, no, it wasn't a crush and I was just wrong. I just met someone who I thought was cool and funny, but looking back, knowing what I do now, it wasn't in a romantic way. I can get very excited and tunnel vision on people I think are really cool or interesting and kind of obsess over getting to know them or just want to spend a lot of time with them. But whenever I got into those tunnel vision moments, if I sat down and asked myself if I actually wanted to be in a relationship with them and hold hands or cuddle or kiss, the answer was not really, but if they wanted to, I could go along with it. Which I do not think is right.
Well, I guess it depends on how you interact with that, right? Because there are aromantic or asexual people out there. Simplify it down to just asexual people. So let's just say this person is romantic, okay? But they're asexual. They don't have a desire, a want, a need for sexual engagement with a partner, but they have a romantic want for a partner. So they have a partner. That partner is not asexual. That person does have those sexual desires. There will be times where asexual people will have sex with a partner for a variety of reasons. For one, it could be to make the partner feel good and you're willing to do that for them even though you don't really have like a want to do it yourself. Sometimes, I forget the exact term for it, but there are people that if they feel a sufficient romantic connection to a person, then they no longer interact with that engagement in an asexual way. So like if they meet a sufficient bar of romanticism with a person, the sexual aspects of them get unshackled. Demisexual, I think, maybe something like that. And some people will just, maybe they just like the physical act of having sex for like the physicality of it, but they don't really like the more psychological. It's all a bunch of nonsense, okay? People are curious, convoluted, complex, cool characters. I was just trying to be alliterative.
And the fact that I was under the assumption that I was supposed to be interested in people in a romantic way didn't help with anything. I always preferred to stay good friends, but never felt like I could have that. And I worried that if I said no, that we would just start drifting apart, which I obviously didn't want either. It's been
that does happen too, which is unfortunate. It is difficult for some people to just be friends with other people.
Very long journey discovering this about myself. Everything I'm saying has all been extremely subconscious and not understood or defined for many years. I even used to think I was bi or pan for the longest time because I would think to myself, well, bi is being interested in both genders. I don't really care for either, but 0 is equal to 0, so I guess I'm bi or pan.
You still could be as well. You can be asexual and aromantic, and I think still be in the spectrum of heterosexual, homosexual, bi, pan, whatever else. It seems to make sense in some ways. But I guess it depends on a variety of factors, like how asexual or aromantic are you, because it's a spectrum. But maybe those would just, at that point, depending on, I guess, how far you're into the sauce, would be more aesthetic interests. So like, do you find feminine people more attractive than masculine people? Because at least for me, that's how I interpret my sexuality. Because I am pansexual, I do not give a fuck what your gender identity is. I don't care about what genitalia you have. If I find you attractive, I find you attractive. And usually it's going to be because I'm attracted to femininity and I am not attracted to masculinity. So if there is a person who is feminine, sufficiently so, I will probably be, finding them attractive if other aspects of them are also attractive to me. And I think that even if you are aroace, you could still have those kind of general interests in the aesthetics. They just might not bridge into attraction. They just might be appreciation or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a social PhD gender sexuality theory understander. I feel like there's some wiggle room there though. I don't know.
If I knew what aromanticism was when I was growing up, things would have been a lot less complicated for me a lot sooner. I think it's mainly because people don't really talk about it or even know what it is or that it's real. Romance and love is the number one most talked about topic on the planet. Everything I've been taught or learned through society is that love and romance is everywhere. Everyone feels it, and it's gonna happen to you.
You imagine the reason for that is that, for as long as any being that reproduces sexually has existed, you kind of need to form these relationships in order to have sex, in order to continue the proliferation of your genes in the gene pool and the continued survival of your species. So the idea that this is a very deeply ingrained thing in society is not weird, right? It's evolution. We kind of needed to do it in order to survive. Luckily, though, nowadays, we're not hurting for people on the planet. Like, we don't really necessarily need to produce more in any major way. We're more intelligent than we have ever been, so we can understand these concepts past the very grug need to make baby kind of mindset. And we've progressed in a variety of other ways in regards to our understanding of human psychology to the point where it's not the most major fixture of some people's lives anymore, because it doesn't have to be. And it's not to say that asexual aromantic people didn't exist back when literally everybody needed to be having kids in order to survive. It's just that they probably either didn't understand it or weren't intelligent enough or just procreated for the sake of continuing the fucking bloodline. That was the point for a while. So a lot of things that involve our evolution as a species will stick around in the zeitgeist, the way people interpret the world and the way that people try to shape the world to fit their worldview. And any outliers in regards to that kind of are contrary to those very, 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 very long, understood processes are kind of weird to some people. And it's hard to undo thousands and thousands of years of evolution. Luckily, though, we're smart enough to not have to worry about it.
I was listening to some generic romance song on the radio, like all of them, and I just suddenly thought to myself, wait, do people actually feel these things towards each other? Like all these mushy lyrics are real emotions? They're not joking? And that's when I started feeling like something was different. I approached romance under the blanket term thought of, sure, why not? And didn't recognize it was actually a feeling, which might sound stupid, but look, I don't know. No one presented me with any other options. Now, I'm gonna talk about being asexual very briefly, and I'm gonna preface it with, let's all just be mature about this, all right? We're all pretending to be adults here. I've got my eye on some of you.
I don't know what the demographic of Jaiden Animations community is like. For some reason, I just have a feeling it skews younger, though. Maybe it's her mannerisms and the way that her content is presented. So it would make sense that, for one, there are a lot of people in her audience that don't even know what the fuck aromantic and asexual is. And for two, would be like, sex funny, haha, lol. In the comments.
Okay, this is definitely treading into uncomfortable personal boundary territory for me, but yeah, I do want to share that I'm asexual too, which is defined as someone who feels little to no intimate attraction to anyone. I have never been magnetically attracted to the look or shape of a single person in my entire life, and did not realize it was a real thing until very recently. I didn't know that people could just see someone and be like, wow, they're gorgeous. I would love to get to know that person, or maybe go on a date with them, or whatever else you people do.
So what's interesting about that too is like, well, I wonder how Jaiden then interacts with aesthetics that she might find interesting. So obviously she's not going to have an attraction, romantic or sexual, to the people, but is there like a certain aesthetic of person that she appreciates, like one more than the other, or to varying degrees, or one overwhelmingly? That would what I would be curious about. Because like for me, I don't know how much my general like sexual or romantic attraction plays into my general appreciation for the aesthetic of femininity. I can see a person who I'm not attracted to who is feminine and be like, wow, that person looks good. I have an appreciation for their aesthetic. So for instance, like the classic Barbie doll archetype of a girl, it's like blonde, very done up, very whatever. Like I don't find that very attractive because that's just not the archetype of femininity I find attractive, but I can appreciate the aesthetics and enjoy seeing it as a result. I don't know. It's interesting.
Now, there's an easy assumption to make about asexual people, and that they all have zero interest in being intimate with anyone at all, which actually isn't true. Some of them are genuinely turned off by it, and some aren't. Some reasons would be that they just don't mind it, or they want to make their partner happy, or enjoy the emotional closeness of it.
Well, here's what I was talking about earlier.
Million different reasons and a million different people. Am I sharing what kind of a people I am? Nope. And you don't know me personally enough in the slightest to be able to try and parasocially analyze.
What? But I've been watching your content for so long. I basically know everything I need to. I really don't like parasocial relationships. I hate it. When it happens to me, when I see it happening with other people, I don't like it.
I'm just here to say I am this. We are moving on. When I stumbled onto the term aroace and started realizing
and I will say it's incredibly responsible to engage with this topic in this way, because Jaiden's been very clear about her boundaries in regards to a variety of different things with this topic. Very good to see.
I've read a lot about how people say they felt broken or that something was wrong with them. But honestly, I was the complete opposite. Coming from my very biased perspective, I think aroace is one of, if not the coolest and most confident orientations out there.
Damn.
Not needing a single gram of romantic or intimate validation from anyone is so cool. All you need is—
That's a weird way to put it. She goes on to say that there are other aroace people who are saying like, oh, I don't feel normal, I feel broken, I feel like I'm not what I'm supposed to be. And we're trying to like juxtapose that with, no, I feel very confident, Jaiden says, about being aromantic and asexual, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine.
All you need is yourself to be happy, maybe friends and family too. and birds.
I can understand what we're doing here. I can understand wanting to portray this identity with this amount of confidence because, like, it's who you are and it's not a thing that people are very aware of. So to be very confident about it not only is good for the self, but is good for people's perception of you and is good for other people who might be hesitant to think about these things for themselves or even come out as aroace if they happen to find out that they are. However, this idea that people that are not need the quote-unquote validation from other people, romantic, sexually, or otherwise, is kind of weird to me. Because it kind of, unless there's more to be said after this, to say that it kind of like demeans people that do have romantic and sexual desires. Because there's a whole host of problems that exist on either side. If you're aromantic, asexual, you got issues that go along with that. If you're not, you got issues that go along with that. And it seems kind of weird to be like, oh, well, excuse me, but I don't need that. You know, I don't need to be validated by other people, romantically or sexually, which is kind of to suggest that the people that do kind of need it, and if they can't get it, then they're kind of lesser, or, you know, I can understand what's being done here, but I would want to be careful about that, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with feeling the desire to want to have a romantic or sexual engagement with a person. I don't think that's an issue. I think it was meant to encourage and embolden. Yeah, no, I understand. It's just, I feel like you got to be careful about that, because I can see how this could be taken negatively.
I came to terms with the fact I'm aroace, the more empowered and capable I felt. But at the same time, I was also starting to feel more alone and isolated. As cool and amazing and unique and awesome as I think it is, it can be really hard for other people to relate to or even understand. Everyone else and their orientations are able to bond and relate to the love and romance aspects, and we're over here like, we don't do that. I don't even know if
It's like they don't know I'm aroace. With the Wojak meme. It is true, though, that romance is very popular in media because it's just like a standard emotion, quote unquote, that a lot of people engage with in their day-to-day lives. It's very easy to, especially for the case of like love songs and pop music, which is literally meant to appeal to the lowest common denominator. It's a thing that you can very easily touch upon and have people reciprocate the feelings of, which is why you're gonna see it everywhere. And in that way, it's also a very easy thing to talk about a lot of the time with other people. You could talk about like your relationships with other people, like when you're socializing, small talk, etc., etc. Do you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Do you have a wife? You have a kid? There's a whole bunch of different stuff regarding romance and sexuality that is pretty surface level to talk about with small talk. And if you can't relate to a lot of that, then you're going to have difficulty with that element of socialization.
romance is taught to be a basic assumed emotion, which I do think is a bit misleading. A common argument used against the aroace orientation is that romance and intimacy is what makes someone human. But I mean,
Whoa.
I don't know, lots of birds mate for life, which is a better ratio than people, and all animals get frisky. You know, that's just how they became not extinct. It's not an exclusive to humans thing. If I were to guess, I would assume the thing that makes someone human is basic empathy. Like, I'm not an emotionalist monster. I can still love people. I love my family and my pets, just platonically. And I would hope that you're the same. I just don't expect—
Wow, coming out against incest, are we? Wow, okay, Jaiden, so progressive you are. Some social democrats on Twitter might feel some type of way about this one, Jaiden. You gotta be careful. A lot of people actually do struggle, though, with the problem of conflating platonic relationships with romantic ones or sexual ones. There are people out there that have difficulty keeping things platonic. They have these desires that are so overwhelming that they either want a romantic or sexual relationship or none at all with a person. And that can manifest in a lot of very negative ways and lead to people getting hurt on any side of it. So the kind of conflation between relationship and like romance or sexuality is not helpful. The idea of normalizing platonic relationships, which are already incredibly normalized, but for some reason in conversations about aroace people doesn't really talk about platonic relationships, it just kind of muddies the water a little bit. So I think understanding that just because somebody's aroace or whatever doesn't mean that they're not able to form platonic relationships, because that doesn't really come into the equation. Aroace is specifically about romantic and sexual engagements with people, and by the time that you're being romantic or sexual with someone, you've moved past platonic. It's just a weird, confusing mess for some reason.
I don't think you need to be in a relationship to be happy. And
True.
if you don't want to be just on your own, I think there's many types of people in relationships that push the boundaries of what a conventional relationship looks like. Telling someone that they need to be in a romantic relationship to be happy and fulfilled is weird. And then when that
the way this animation worked, I thought this person just got like flicked and their ass just swelled up. I didn't realize it was a heart at first. Anyway, you get what I mean. Am I alone in this?
What a conventional relationship looks like. Telling someone that they need to be
like, I didn't see the bottom part of the I just thought they got struck and is like, it's, I don't know, anyway. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and this isn't even to consider like polyamorous relationships where people will have romantic or sexual engagements with multiple people at once. That's also another thing that is kind of unusual when it comes to broader societal expectation, which is almost kind of like the other side of the coin here in some ways, in that like, yeah, you do have romantic and sexual desires, so much so that you're willing to do that with multiple people, not just the monogamous, expectation. Very interesting.
I also think it's weird that once someone reaches a certain age, people inherently start thinking it's sad they're not in a romantic relationship.
True. Or you're also pressured a lot into doing that too. It's really fucking weird, especially with a lot of like parents out there. Like whenever like a kid is hanging out with another kid. So like, let's say a girl's hanging out with a boy. The parent's like, ooh, is that your boyfriend? Is that your girlfriend? It's fucking weird, man. Like, these are kids. What are you doing? I understand that it's like a playful little thing, but this is to say that it's kind of suggested or forced onto a person when they're very young. I don't like it when it's done to me when I was a kid, because it's like, well, first of all, it's none of your business, all right? Mom. No, it's just a little weird. And an extension of that is when kids do become a little bit older, they go through puberty, then you get a lot of the, oh, like, is that your girlfriend? Is that your boyfriend? Like, what's up here? And then past that, once you get to a certain age where the normal expectation is for you to have kids, it's like, oh, when am I going to get grandkids? When am I going to get grandkids? All this kind of shit. Like, when are you going to engage in a heterosexual engagement where you produce offspring for the benefit of, I want to see it as a parent, which is kind of fucking weird too. That kind of pressure from a parent, I don't like it. It's unfair to especially everyone, but also especially queer people who may not have a desire for that. It's weird, man. I don't know. The straights, they're a bit odd, is what I'm going to say. They're kind of forcing their degeneracy onto everybody else, and I don't like it. Anyway.
I just know for me, the terms aromantic and asexual are able to articulate things I was subconsciously feeling and thinking before I even realized I was feeling and thinking them. I don't plan on talking about this very much, if at all, ever again, but I wanted to bring the orientations to the surface and try to get more representation out there because I thought if I could help more people become more aware of this, then that would be awesome. I was confused as hell for a while and could have used something like this. It's a really
good video to make, and I'm glad she did it. For me, I get a very like gut level when I hear, oh, somebody has come out as whatever sexuality or whatever else. It's like, oh, cool. That's how that person is. Let's go. I'm happy for you. I just don't care that much. But that's kind of because that's how I engage with my own sexuality and gender identity. I do not give a shit about my sexuality. I do not give a fuck about my gender identity. There's a lot of people out there that have that special connection to their gender identity or their sexuality, and that's fine. That's valid. That's totally cool. And the fact that people would be very excited and open about it, so much so, it's like to buy a flag and hang it up or to embroider everything with the flag of their given identity is totally cool, in my opinion, and good for normalizing it to other people. That's a cool thing for other people that don't really care about their gender and sexuality too. You got another one in me, okay? You don't have to care about your gender identity or sexuality, though society kind of makes you.
This has all been my personal experience with this stuff. Is there more for me to figure out within it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is. It can get pretty complicated and confusing. Haha, awesome. Hope you can understand even just a little of what I talked about. And if not, that's totally fine. I just hope you can be nice.
So what's interesting is the being not straight part of the title is interesting because to be straight is to have a attraction, romantic or sexual, to somebody who identifies as the opposite gender to yours. Asexual, I think, does fall under the definition of not straight. The reason being that heterosexual, straight, is the norm, quote unquote. That's what society expects people to be, and there are people in society trying to force everybody to be that way. So when you're asexual and aromantic, especially, both of them combined, you're not engaging with the romance or sexual attraction to anyone, which makes you different from being straight, in my opinion. So I don't think there's anything wrong with titling it being not straight. I think that's valid. That's totally fine.
I did end up wanting to make the video to make people more aware of this stuff because I think it's important, and there's not really that many people doing it right now. Anyway, yeah, just moving forward, I guess. See you later.
Also, Jesus Christ.
Right
to
now.
support the team,
Anyway.
There's 13 people plus Jaiden Animations that work on this channel. God damn. What is it that's making people mad regarding the video? You know, it's interesting you asked that question because on a surface level, this video was completely inoffensive to me because I am a woke lord of infinite knowledge and acceptance. The only reason I knew anything about Jaiden Animations is because of this video and the related discourse surrounding it. People in my chat were like, yo, did you see the Jaiden Animations video? Because they're fans of Jaiden Animations and thought it was cool. And they know that I talk about gender and sexuality and stuff like that. So it makes sense that they'd bring it up to me. And I'd also seen it on my Twitter feed because I am cursed to be on this hell site for my job. And I did see some of this stuff, especially the negative ones, because if you look at the initial tweet that Jaiden Animations put out, you got the thumbnail here, which is just Jaiden with a pride flag behind it, which, by the way, does include asexuality because it is asexuality that is contrary to the norm. The pride flag here, the rainbow flag, does not just mean homosexual. It means all queer people as a blanket umbrella flag for all of them. This is the pride flag. That's what it's called, not the gay flag. But if you look at the quote tweets, it's an overwhelming sea of positivity now. But there are a lot of posts out here that are negative. And for me, as a person that likes to see people being negative to completely inoffensive things because of the fact that they don't understand reality or basic social concepts, that's a lot of fun to look at. So here's a tweet. Doesn't have a lot of engagement. It says, Jaiden is asexual and aromantic. Can't say I'm surprised given the inferences I've made from her friend group. Watch 1 minute, and I don't know, just feels like normal behavior. Probably just feels like she needs to be part of some niche group / community. Many such cases. What? How is it that in society, the idea that being asexual, not feeling a sexual attraction to another person, or being aromantic, which is I think even more outlandish, not feeling a romantic attraction to another person, is normal? What? Maybe it's normal because you're also asexual or aromantic and you just don't understand it yet. You don't know how to conceptualize it. In that way, watching more than 1 minute of it might be helpful for you. It might be illuminating to you because if you think that that's normal, I could tell you that if you went out and touched grass, let's say, you wouldn't find many others out there like that, you know? It's very odd. So like this idea that, oh, I have a problem with the fact that society expects me to be romantically or sexually attracted to people and I'm not, and this is manifested in a variety of negative ways in my life. The idea that that is something that you're just gonna make up to try to be in some kind of community and like pretend to be like a marginalized group is ludicrous. It is kind of like how people will be like, ooh, non-binary is just spicy cis. You just want to be part of the LGBTQ community and you want to have that accolade so that you're like, it's silly. It's odd. It's weird. I don't like it. Stop doing it. The person says, in fact, she used the pride flag was clearly an attention grab. Quote unquote, I don't like people is not sexuality. Stop acting like you're special when you're not. So that's really funny is that these people just lack the education on the topic. And if they actually did learn more about it, they wouldn't have takes like this. They wouldn't get so easily upset about it if they actually understood what they were talking about, if they lived in reality. So this quote unquote, I don't like people is not a sexuality. That's not what asexual or aromantic is. It's not that you don't like people. What does like people mean here? Do you mean like people as in tolerate or enjoy the presence of platonically? Because you can like a person platonically. Like my dad, I like my dad because he's my dad and I like him. Not only that, I do love him because he's my father, but also I like the guy because you think he's cool. He's got cool interests. He does cool things. He's a cool guy. I like him. You could do that platonically. So if you're saying that don't like people as in you think aromantic or asexual people just hate other people and don't want to be around them and are antisocial, that's not what that means. You have a misreading of what that means. But to say to like not like people as in you don't have a romantic or sexual interest in another person, that is a sexuality, quite literally. If you do not feel a sexual attraction to a person, that's a sexuality. It might feel like it's the inverse of a sexuality, because it kind of is, you know? A sexuality is usually understood to be you have an attraction sexually to X, and then asexuality is not having attraction to X, or all of what's encompassing everything else around it. It's a sexuality, definitionally. You're silly. Aromantic, on the other hand, is not necessarily intrinsically tied to sexuality. However, most of the time when people are getting romantic with others, there is a sexual connotation to it and expectation to it in a lot of cases. It doesn't have to be the case, of course. If two asexual people get together but are attracted to each other romantically, well, then there you go. You probably aren't having sex. You might be, who knows? But you're still in a romantic relationship. You know, so aromantic is not necessarily intrinsically tied to it, but there's a lot of overlap. Person says, also, why is an alleged lack of sexual attraction part of the quote-unquote community that defines itself by sexual attractions? Because it's the lack of a sexual attraction, and it deviates from the norm. Very simple. It just seems like we have all these labels for people who support the LGBT, but don't want to be called straight in fear of not being an ally. In what way do you infer that Jaiden is not straight? Where do you get that idea? How can you know? In fact, in the beginning of the video, she even talks about how like, oh, well, at a certain point, I thought that I might be bi or pan or whatever because I didn't understand my aromantic, asexual self, which kind of hints at the idea that Jaiden is not limited in finding any kind of even like aesthetic interest in either gender identity. Kind of indicates that if she did have that kind of attraction, she probably wouldn't be straight. This is the same kind of, ooh, non-binary is spicy cis kind of take, which is just gatekeeping and unhelpful. Like, the amount of people that would try to weaponize being aromantic, asexual, or non-binary as a means to try to infiltrate the community and get the accolades of being shit on by broader society is so infinitesimally small to be statistically insignificant, and you shouldn't care about it because it's not a problem, even if it does happen. Now, it is shitty if people are going to pretend to be that and they're not, and they're weaponizing it for clout or whatever, but the amount of times that happens is so statistically insignificant that it's hard for me to care. Also, the idea that like people would hate people that don't have a romantic or sexual interest or attraction in other people, it's like they are quite literally not hurting anybody. Like, definitionally, they're not doing anything to anybody else. It's like, to be aroace is quite literally like one of the most individualistic things you can do that do not hurt anybody else around you as long as you engage with it in a responsible way, right? Like, you're literally, like, you're isolating yourself, like, definitionally. Like, how could that possibly be a problem for another person? I don't understand it. Because, like, the only way I could see it negatively manifest is, like, oh, if you lead people on, like, if you understand yourself to be aromantic and asexual, but you lead other people on because you think it's fun or whatever. I don't know who's doing this. I don't think anybody's doing this. In fact, Jaiden did detail points in the video where, because she didn't understand herself to be aromantic or asexual, she thought that because society says that you should be those things, and the fact that she didn't feel that way, she kind of tried to like pretend to feel those things with other people because she thought that that's what she was supposed to do. And that kind of misunderstanding and lack of education is what's leading to the harm there. That's not a conscious decision to, oh, I'm going to lead people on kind of thing. That's I was never taught this because society has failed me in educating me and other people about this kind of concept. So now that's leading to the harm. What else do we got? Oh, this was an interesting thing. Another post that I saw is from this person. They say, seeing the aroace Google search results spiking at the same time this video came out, I think is really funny. And that is true. So for one, I think this might be hinting at the idea that a lot of the people shitting on Jaiden Animations for being aroace don't even know what it is to begin with before they start shitting on her. And for two, this does indicate that there are probably people out there that didn't know what aroace meant, but then because of this video learned about it. And if they had any of these feelings, if they felt they reciprocated with the video, ended up going further, learning more about it when it came to themselves, which is a good thing. Education about these topics only helps people understand themselves better and helps them interact with the world better. This is a good thing. But anyway, of course, there is a sea of people being positive and supportive in these comments, which is pissing me off because I want to shit on more people with bad takes. But like, I'm not kidding, by the way. Like, very cool to see someone with a large platform talking about this. Really nice to see somebody display how it can feel to be asexual. Honestly, thought I wouldn't have to say this, but yes, aroace people belong in the LGBTQ plus community, actually same. Like, it is a sea of positivity, which is a good thing. I know on the internet we like to cherry pick the negativity because it's fun, but, you know, this is interesting. So this is literally just noun bunch of numbers, who megalol on Twitter, okay? But they say, if you tell your life story and talk about personal stuff like you did in this video, you're making people invested in your life. Why would you then turn around and call your audience weird for wanting to know more, hinting at the part of the video about the whole parasocial stuff is what annoyed them? So first of all, to an extent it's true. Like, if you do deliver information about your personal life, that is necessarily going to make some people that watch you invested in those personal things about you. That just kind of is how it is. However, it's how you engage with that's where the problems come in. So usually when a person is divulging personal information about themselves, they are doing it to an extent. They're not telling you literally everything that's going on with them. They will have a boundary. They are consenting to the delivery of this information about them and their personal lives. So if you do, as a content creator, give out some of this information, and then somebody else in the audience wants to know more and picks and prods and pries at you, that's a problem. And you should be very clear that you don't like that as a content creator. And from what I can tell, this is the only Jaiden Animations video I've seen, okay? So I don't know the extent of it, but from what I can tell, Jaiden Animations is putting up very clear boundaries over what she's okay with delivering about her personal life and what she's not. She's like explicitly towards the end of the video says that this is as far as I'm going to take you guys on this journey for information about myself. You're now left back there. I'm not telling you anything else. If you ask for more, you're not gonna get it, and you might get shit on by me as a content creator as a result or whatever, like get moderated, you know, get timed out, banned, whatever else. That is a good boundary to have, and I think she's engaging with it in a responsible way. So the idea that this is a problem for this person is kind of a you problem for the person writing this. You gotta set clear boundaries as a content creator. Anyway. Thought the video was pretty well directed and covering all the angles and questions a person unfamiliar with the topic would have. It did pretty well, I think. Obviously, it was a very surface level take because that's what it was supposed to be. And you would want it to be, especially for the audience that I assume Jaiden Animation has, and that she says in the video she doesn't talk about this that much. So you would imagine that a lot of the people in the audience might not even be familiar with a lot of the concepts regarding gender and sexuality. So talking about it at a surface level is the correct way to go about that, I think. What is this? It says, well, have fun being the most saddest human being to ever exist in your miserable life. What does this mean? This is literally a video of Jaiden Animations detailing how she's happier than she's ever been after finding out this information about her identity. What? It's so silly, man. Like, you're just projecting. It's a lot of projection going on around here. You're just saying that, oh, this person probably feels lonely, is probably miserable because they seem to think that their prospects for any kind of romance or whatever are not attainable, and you're taking it out on somebody else because this person is completely fine and okay and confident in the fact that they don't want that. It's all that it is. So weird. Anyway, to all the aromantic, asexual, whatever else homies out there, you're valid, you're cool. I'm glad Jaiden Animations made this video. It's literally the first one I've ever watched. And I think it's a good thing for people to make videos like this so that other people who reciprocate some of the self-perceptions that they have about themselves feel like, oh, I'm not alone. There's actually words to the things that I feel. I can actually find out more about this thing that I feel and then be more confident and enjoy life more. It's just a net benefit to the world. And it's a good thing that happened. And also, I was able to shamelessly steal it for content. Let's go. This video's got to call it as Elise Devon. Thanks so much for the support and also for being based and liking birds as well. Hope you continue to enjoy my content. If you would like to be the next Connor Call It, all you gotta do is follow me on Twitter at ConnorCC. Retweet my video links when they go live. Remember to subscribe to the channel, put all notifications on when you hit the bell, leave a like if you'd like, comment something in support of aroace people down below, and have a splendid day.